Let's continue with our afternoon program, starting with an exciting discussion on e-commerce trends and last mile delivery. The global e-commerce market is projected to reach 47.7 trillion US dollars by 2030. This session will examine how logistics hubs and express companies are responding to this explosive growth, with a focus on technology-driven solutions for the last mile delivery. Moderating this session is Mr. Sanjay Samarsinghe, Country Manager at Aramex Freight Corporation, Sri Lanka. With his extensive experience in logistics, express logistics, Mr. Samarsinghe will steer this important discussion. I kindly request the speakers to join us on stage as I call out their names. Joining our moderator, joining the panelists are, first off, Mr. Samer Hajar, CEO of the Southeast Asia and Indian subcontinent of Aramex, Mr. Chintaka Abe Wikrama, the Group CEO of NetLogix, Mr. Suren Abesekara, former Chairman of Sri Lanka's Shippers Council, Mr. Sean Van Dort, Chairman of Global Shippers Forum and the current Chairman of the Shippers Council Sri Lanka, and lastly, Ms. Julie Renaud, Director of Consumer and Retail, KPMG Asia Pacific. Please help me welcome our panelists on stage.
Hello, everyone. Everyone seems a little less here right now. Rohan, you want to go and ring the bell again at the dining, or tell the guys to get it takeaway? Okay, so for those of you who are here now, I'm going to say that this is going to be the most exciting session, I think. We spent 2 days talking about marine and sea freight and ports. Today we are going to talk about the future. So to that extent, we've got a brilliant panel sitting here with us, both from Sri Lanka. We've got gentlemen from Australia and New Zealand. We've got from the Middle East, Africa, Southeast Asia with Summer here. We've got Sean, who's a legend in the industry. I call him Batman. Yeah. So we've got a very interesting panel. We've got a lady from France who's also representing KPMG sitting in the crowd with us and on the panel with us, going to give us a lot of insight into data and the background of the industry as well. So to get started off with, I'm going to invite Summer to come on to the podium and give a little bit of a holistic background of the e-commerce market in the region with your experience, and also tell us a little bit about what Aramex is doing.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a refreshing lunch. Let's continue with our afternoon program, starting with an exciting discussion on e-commerce trends and last mile delivery. The global e-commerce market is projected to reach 47.7 trillion US dollars by 2030. This session will examine how logistics hubs and express companies are responding to this explosive growth, with a focus on technology-driven solutions for the last mile delivery. Moderating this session is Mr. Sanjay Samarsinghe, Country Manager at Aramex Freight Corporation, Sri Lanka. With his extensive experience in logistics, express logistics, Mr. Samarsinghe will steer this important discussion. I kindly request the speakers to join us on stage as I call out their names. Joining our moderator, joining the panelists are, first off, Mr. Samer Hajar, CEO of the Southeast Asia and Indian subcontinent of Aramex, Mr. Chintaka Abe Wikrama, the Group CEO of NetLogix, Mr. Suren Abesekara, former chairman of Sri Lanka's Shippers Council, Mr. Sean Van Dort, chairman of Global Shippers Forum and the current chairman of the Shippers Council Sri Lanka, and lastly, Ms. Julie Renaud, Director of Consumer and Retail, KPMG Asia Pacific. Please help me welcome our panelists on stage.
Okay, so for those of you who are here now, I'm going to say that this is going to be the most exciting session, I think. We spent 2 days talking about marine and sea freight and ports. Today we are going to talk about the future. So to that extent, we've got a brilliant panel sitting here with us, both from Sri Lanka. We've got gentlemen from Australia and New Zealand. We've got from the Middle East, Africa, Southeast Asia with Summer here. We've got Sean, who's a legend in the industry. I call him Batman. Yeah. So we've got a very interesting panel. We've got a lady from France who's also representing KPMG, sitting in the crowd with us and on the panel with us, going to give us a lot of insight into data and the background of the industry as well. So to get started off with, I'm going to invite Summer to come on to the podium and give a little bit of a holistic background of the e-commerce market in the region with your experience, and also tell us a little bit about what Aramex is doing.
How does it work? It's here, so, okay, it's not, doesn't show me. Okay, it's fine. Look, first of all, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you all for the invite. It's an honor being here as well, part of this event. I'm overwhelmed, but it seems lunch kicked up some people, so went back to sleep, huh? Why is this a special place for me, other than what I've heard for the last couple of hours, in terms of Sri Lanka being a unique location as a hub or a potential hub? For me, it holds a very special place in my heart. 15 years ago, this was my first stop after getting married. It was my honeymoon place. So, and I don't need to talk a lot about Sri Lankans, how warm and welcoming and kind they are. So every time I come here, I really enjoy my visit, whether it's for pleasure or business. So thanks again. So my name is Samer Hajjar. If it's too hard for you to spell, a lot of people call me Samir, you can call me Sam, you can call me anything you want. So as long as you don't sleep. So I've been with Aramex for the last 26 years. I moved into, as Sanjay mentioned, I've moved into different positions across different geographies, from the Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. I was based out of Morocco. Then I moved to Nigeria, Ghana, and I was across different parts of Africa. And then I just landed back again, now nearby in Malaysia. And it's been a roller coaster ride, but I've learned a lot. And this region is full of opportunities. Just to give you a bit of background of Aramex, if you're not familiar with the company, we're a total supply chain solutions provider. We have presence in more than 70 countries across 250 offices, more than 17,000 employees. And we do more than 100 million packages. We are a one-stop shop solutions. And we do everything from domestic to express to freight forwarding and supply chain. And all this is driven definitely by technology. We've been very aggressive in terms of our push on digital transformation, and it's been going on for the last 10 years. And even this year with AI, we've been pushing even more and more. So moving forward, I think one of the major focuses Aramex is pushing on is the last mile innovation. And that's where the challenge in terms of package or shipment deliveries. So whether it's the electrical vehicles that was touched upon earlier in terms of sustainability, or the autonomous vehicles, or the drones and the bots. And along my presentation, I'll definitely touch more. So just to touch on what's the top e-commerce trends that's going on across the globe, and what's going on in the market, and how is it reacting. It's quite interesting to go back to history, where it all started maybe in Amazon and eBay, with the book stories and the used products, and eventually it popped, if you remember, during the dot-com boom, where the bubble burst. Unfortunately, the market was not ready, the technology was not up there, and the costs were very phenomenal. So it didn't really work. So, and as we propelled, basically, with the digitalization and the technology, we saw a boom, and we saw an exponential boom, and it's still going on till this date. And all the numbers tell us, and we've heard a lot of the colleagues who are up here on the panel mentioning that. So in last year alone, we hit close to $6 trillion of e-commerce business. And what's interesting to look at, the mobile is now driving this growth, because now everything's accessible. You see people's even ordering sitting in the toilet. It's quite accessible, very easy, very cost effective, and it's getting more and more personalized as we move. So the desktops and the laptops is quite a dying method of approach towards e-commerce trade. And, okay. So we can see basically that what does the client want? They want to ensure that the minute they order a shipment, they get it not tomorrow, yesterday, if not today. So with that being said, the whole process end to end has to be seamless. And that's why mobile is getting a lot of traction. And that's why you see most of the transactions are growing on a phenomenal 10 times faster than the traditional e-commerce transactions that were happening earlier through the desktop or the laptop. And they're getting more and more personalized. When we talk about personalization, all of a sudden, you're thinking about talking to a friend, talking to your family member, you want to buy, let's say, a mobile. All of a sudden, you get different types of mobiles coming to you with the color, as if somebody, you know, I don't know, you have a concierge service. And it's becoming very personalized, which is interesting, but it's scary at the same time. And that's driving more and more sales across in terms, and that's driving more and more growth in terms of e-commerce. It makes it more accessible. And we can see that also social commerce is pushing forward in terms of that growth. And we've seen social commerce hit $45 billion across the US. So I just want to take you to a journey for a shipment that moves from point A to point B, which is from one side, the supplier, or the marketplace, or the e-commerce player, or the brand, whoever it is, basically, and he's selling across to a consignee. It's very simple to say, I want a seamless, I don't want to know what happened, I want my shipment. So, but it goes through basically some challenges. It's not as simple as it is. So I don't know how much of you are familiar with the first mile, mid-mile, and last mile. So the first mile starts with the pickup, which is very simple. It's not very complicated. Definitely there are challenges. The mid-mile is lately, because of the geopolitical, because of the weather, because of so many other, the boom, the capacity, and so forth, it's affecting basically the volumes and affecting the space and the cost, definitely. But the last mile, which is the delivery component, is the most challenging part of that process. And that's why you see a lot of innovation, a lot of AI injection to see how we can find solutions towards that last mile. Because there's a lot of variables when it comes to the last mile. And when we talk about the last mile, we're talking about challenges like the ones that were, again, mentioned earlier in terms of Christmas, New Year, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and there's no anticipation. And then it comes with other challenges in terms of the address. the address in some part of this world is a challenge to get to that specific address, which is an issue. So you will not be able to hit that successful delivery, unfortunately. So that's why AI is really helping to give us a little bit of visibility and a trend. So today, when a shipment goes out for delivery, we have at least 90 to 95% success ratio of hitting and catching the client. Why? Because of the forecast and AI crunching all that data, we'll be able to anticipate that that person is available at that address at that time instead of missing out. Because returns happens to be in the e-commerce business a big hit to the bottom line of these players. And there's new concepts coming up. When we talk about last mile, as I mentioned earlier, people want their shipments delivered as ASAP, which means we need to keep up innovating. And with AI-driven solutions, there's new concepts coming in. So there's a new concept is being applied for the last couple of years. It's called dark warehouses, mini hub, mini centers, whatever you want to call it. And we've seen companies starting to apply that and deliver shipments anywhere between 8 to 10 minutes. And that's next door in India. Yeah. So imagine I was just sitting there. I was quite baffled. I said, it's not going to work. I ordered a multi-plug, which I needed before I was traveling out of India. And my colleague said, don't worry, we'll order one. In 10 minutes, it'll be here. And I was quite impressed with the service, considering the infrastructure and challenges in India. It got delivered in 5 to 10 minutes. So how does that work? This works by, you need to have multiple hubs, all connected through technology, definitely, with AI crunching all that data to ensure where's the nearest place that has that available product and can deliver within that time frame, connected with a courier. It sounds very complicated, but once you get that technology in place, you'll be able to deliver these packages in no time. And this is where the future is heading. If you recall, once upon a time, shipments were getting delivered in 1 week or 2 weeks, and everybody was happy. And now you see basically, a move towards shortening that time space from 1 week to 1 day, and now same day, and then eventually in 10 to 15 minutes. And it's become an actual reality. And you need to compete with that. And we can see an exponential growth on that. So it's expected to have the same day delivery across the globe to hit 21% of any kind of delivery that's being done for e-commerce. And definitely we cannot forget sustainability and EV, going green, and CO2 emissions, which is part of the whole process. And I'm sure a couple of weeks ago, maybe some of you have heard about the COP and the investment and the drive behind that meeting in Azerbaijan, in Baku, $300 billion. That's a substantial number, and I hope it comes into reality. Nevertheless, when today, even doing business without taking sustainability into consideration, it will affect your cost, your efficiencies. It will affect as well doing business with certain clients. I met a client just a couple of months ago, and I'm sure you're familiar with them. Maybe Apple has a commitment towards 2030 to ensure that they are carbon neutral. And in order to achieve that, they need suppliers and partners who help them to get there. And we've been, as in Aramex, investing in EV vehicles and alternative solutions, basically, with the pack stations, others, to ensure that we deliver that kind of commitment. Another area we've seen in terms of e-commerce trending and it's gaining momentum is live streaming. Live streaming is quite interesting, and what made it more attractive is there's a lot of players out there selling so many products. And how do you know it's authentic? How do you know if it's good or bad? So with the live streaming, that allows you, and that's why you see that growth factor kicking in. And we've seen a CAGR growth of 27% to hit $661 billion by 2027. And it's continuing to grow at a phenomenal rate of 10 times more than the traditional e-commerce shopping. And definitely, I can see a lot of Generation Z here who are driving that. So, welcome. And when we talk about e-commerce, definitely AI and as I highlighted earlier, and digitalization is quite important not to miss out. And I've heard, again, a lot of comments, people are afraid of AI. Well, I don't want to scare you, but if you're not on that bus, you're out of the market. If not today, tomorrow. So make sure to start today before you miss that bus, unfortunately. So we have been investing aggressively in terms of AI, which is helping us to drive cost down. Because I always tell my colleagues that e-commerce is the drive to the bottom in terms of every day, our clients wants us to do things faster and to do things cheaper. And how do you achieve that? And so AI is coming hand in hand with these kind of solutions. It's driving more and more automation, and more visibility, more data, more predictions that will help us to deliver faster in a better manner as well, and improves definitely the success ratio, and definitely drops down the returns. So I've been seeing a lot of trends and investments in terms of returns. Returns is the biggest hits on e-commerce, by the way. It really cuts a lot of their profits, basically. So it's quite interesting to see the solutions that are coming up, which are seamless, integrated of shipments. You know, they go out for delivery, and all of a sudden that shipment is not the one I ordered. It could be a red color where I ordered blue, for example. And then the challenges going through that process to get it returned back and getting a refund or getting an exchange is insane. So and today we have these paperless solutions that is seamless and ensures that the customer experience is up to the standard and expectations that is there. On another note, if we look at in terms of AI, what are the top features that AI today is focused on? Is customer service. So if you go now and check what's the top usage of AI, is customer service with the chatbots today. And what's interesting to see is that chatbots have become so real that some of the clients are missing out, whether it's they're talking to a bot or they're talking to a person behind the phone or through the chat. So it's quite interesting how this technology is advancing and it's definitely dropping cost, guys. So make sure not to miss the bus here. Last point I want to mention on AI, I know you remember what happened back during COVID, where there was huge piles of stock, where a lot of brands and products, they didn't know what to do with it. They were stuck with these products because they had no visibility. They had no AI engines running that data to ensure what to order, when to order, and what's the expected sales, and when to be ready for the seasonal push up or down, irrespective. And that has really helped a lot of efficiencies and definitely working capital and cash flow. So these are just some of the areas that are really helping drive more and more efficiencies across the e-commerce. If we zoom into Southeast Asia, it's nothing different, but it's quite moving at a fast pace today with the average age, which is quite low, as I mentioned earlier, Generation Z and even the size of the population. And the increase of the high middle income earners is driving more and more e-commerce volumes and marketplaces to flourish. So in 23, Southeast Asia had 363 billion is expected next year. So and the phenomenon, we can see a lot of companies rising at a double-digit, triple-digit growth year over year. And definitely what's interesting to see is all this, as I mentioned earlier, is driven by mobile transactions. Why is that? Because mobiles are accessible, cheap, internet's cheap, and it's good. and it's quite fast. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, it's quite on the back foot. Maybe I think it's within a penetration of 45, 43%, but I think it's gaining traction. So it is definitely very interesting to see that area grow. And I think one area has been discussed, and I think the government here in Sri Lanka needs to step up. We've seen a lot of initiatives to support these e-commerce startups, whether through tax benefits or through free zones or different other support areas that they are helping to grow this business. And we can touch upon these success stories, basically. And definitely Amazon has been leading across the globe, pushing the envelope to see how they can get shipments delivered. Started off, as I told you, 1 week, and now same day, and I don't know what's next. Drones, autonomous vehicles, I can name a huge list. Another success stories on the e-commerce is basically, there's a long list. In order not to take much of your time, I just want to highlight the Uber model, which is quite interesting to see the dynamic pricing. So it goes up and down based on supply, based on demand, ensuring that the cars are always available throughout the day. So that's quite an interesting model. Who would have said that Tommy Hilfiger, which is manufactured here, I believe, I've met some of the clients and I've seen Tommy Hilfiger, if I'm not mistaken, is manufactured here in Sri Lanka. And if you go back historically and you see throughout any of the traditional sales, even on whether through marketing or advertising or even through direct sales through shops, would be able to sell 1,300 hoodies in 2 minutes. So with these phenomenal numbers and crazy numbers, but definitely there are challenges. Not to undermine the challenges that e-commerce will still continue because of the variable or unknown factors that keep on kicking in. And we've seen a lot of them, and I'm not going to go through them again, but I'll just name a few of them. Weather could be one, infrastructure, congestion, geopolitical situation, war, embargo, China +1 policy, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And definitely, we've seen a surge in cost, and as I highlighted, we need to ensure that we inject the technology, and I'm focusing on AI in specific to drop these costs. Last mile cost, by the way, just to give you an example, when I mentioned the shipment that goes from point A to point B, this is insight from our experience in Aramex, is the last mile normally is the costliest part. And when we do the first time delivery, we are profitable. The second time, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I'll share it with you. Second time, we become less profitable. The third attempt, unfortunately, we go into the red. We start losing money. That's why it's very important to hit from the first time. For us, any kind of second attempt or returns or whatever it is, it becomes a costly exercise, not just for us, for the clients as well. So it's very important that we keep on improvising and upgrading our infrastructure, and we are investing aggressively when I talk about digitalization and AI solutions and systems. We have a commitment for the next couple of years, close to $100 million. And imagine, with all these solutions that I will share at the end, you'll be, what the hell, where are you spending? But doesn't mean that even small players come, because now technology is off the shelf, depending on the size. But when you want to scale, it becomes a costly exercise, especially in terms of visibility, in terms of the solutions and the challenges that I've mentioned earlier, and the efficiencies that you want to achieve. And definitely, customer satisfaction is at the heart of it. You cannot miss that, because that means you will miss out on and you will lose a sell. So what are the solutions that are working out there? Again, I'm sorry for repeating, but it's AI is in terms of optimization, giving more and more visibility, giving more efficiency, data analytics. Today, data, they call it, I don't know, you want to call it oil, you want to call it gold. It's definitely something that you need to keep close to you and you need to build up, because that's where it will give you more and more visibility and in terms of improving your service levels. Collaboration as well. So it's quite important to understand and learn and share. Customer-centric is, again, something very important that you need to focus on because everything is built on trust when it comes to e-commerce. The minute you break that trust, you're losing customers, you're losing momentum, and that exponential growth that we spoke about, and that's why you see a huge focus on AI in terms of customer service centricity, coming with the chatbots and other technologies. So definitely, and sustainability, which I highlighted earlier. So these are some of the future trends. One interesting, I think, area that it's gaining now momentum is AR and VR, which is augmented reality. So today, and that's part of enhancing the experience of fashion or any other, or cosmetics, where it allows the customers to try them on virtually in order to minimize the returns. So that's quite innovative and smart in terms of the utilization of these different technologies. Blockchain is coming back very aggressively, just to let you know. Why? Because there's so many players out there and so much of fraud, so much of authenticity issue, and blockchain is now playing a major role in that, and it's coming back. One thing which is quite interesting, I'm sure most of you or a lot of you use WhatsApp. And if I ask you, would you rather type or send a voice? It's much faster. So you are seeing a lot of development in terms of the smart speakers to see how you can order faster in a better manner and ensuring that they sell more. So with all that being said, I'm coming to the end of my presentation where I'm going to share an interesting video on Aramex on how far we are advanced on some of these solutions that I've mentioned. There's a voice. Sorry, sound is not there, it seems. But it's okay. Enjoy. I can sing for you if you want. All of you are tired, huh? So this is part of the EV solutions that we're driving momentum. Close to 20%, 25% of our fleets across the globe are being invested, and these are drones. And this is something that Sanjay touched on. It's not fully commercialized in terms of utilization, but this test was done in Oman, by the way. And these bots are implemented on some of our clients' facilities. So it's becoming a reality. And it's been going on for the last 10 years. When I was in Africa, I remember there was a company called Zipline who was sending shipments across different parts of the country which had no infrastructure, especially when on the pharma level. And they're becoming more and more commercial as we speak. And they're becoming more and more practical in terms of carrying more and more weights. So I met a company that can carry up to 1 ton of cargo. So it's becoming more and more viable, but definitely the restrictions that were touched upon earlier is there. And I hope we'll be able to see them run in Sri Lanka soon. Thank you all.
Thank you, Samar, for a very informative presentation. Welcome, everybody else, late from lunch. Hope the insulin hit is going down, or is it going up? Everyone needs some coffee, Rohan. Okay, guys, I've got another very informative presentation coming up. This is from Julia. Julia is the Director of Consumer and Retail for KPMG Asia Pacific. I think she's going to set the stage for our discussion as well. So welcome, Julia, to the podium. And please, if everyone can give a round of applause to wake yourselves up as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Hello. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. It's my first time at the Colombo International Maritime and Logistics Conference, but I'm very happy. And I'm going to talk to you today about seamless commerce. So we've heard e-commerce, we've heard many different things, but what is seamless commerce? It's a little bit further than omnichannel, and I've actually asked ChatGPT to give me a definition, because we are using AI here. Seamless commerce is a smooth, unified shopping experience across all channels. So it means that it's omnichannel integration, offline, online, mobile platforms, but also personalization and frictionless transactions. So having a consistent experience and real-time updates, all about supply chain. And finally, having a customer-centric design. So I hope today to bring a little bit of insights and that this is going to make you more successful. So, moving to, okay. So for about a year, we worked together with GS1, the barcode organization, and Voti.ai, and we surveyed about 7,000 consumers across 14 geographies, including Hong Kong, China, Singapore, New Zealand. Sri Lanka was not part of this survey, but hopefully for the next edition, I would love to. We also interviewed a number of executives from Reliance in India to Lotte in South Korea and Aftership in Hong Kong. And so I'm going to try to share a few data points with you, and hopefully it's going to help you understand what is the future of seamless commerce. So Asia Pacific at a glance. What did we do? We asked our consumers where they prefer to shop, whether it's online, whether it's in a physical shop, whether it's omni-channel. We also wanted to check what were the preferred method of payments, using a digital e-wallet, cash on delivery. We wanted to check what is the technology that they prefer. Are they willing to pay a premium for sustainability? And finally, what are the top 5 improvements for them on e-commerce? So this is Asia Pacific at a glance, but I'm going to go a little bit further on what have we learned. And I'm going to take you through every segment, but I'm going to start with the Gen Z consumers. So who are the Gen Z? They were born between 1997 and 2012. So this is the younger generation. But this Gen Z is numerous. They are tech savvy. They dislike physical stores. They are digital native and use their phone 24/7. And 63% like social commerce. They value online shopping based on having a wide variety of products, but also having a fast and reliable delivery. We call them the digital native generation. They use technology for mobile payments, for social commerce, for live streaming shopping, and these Gen Z are a new type of generation because they are impacting the way we do business. They are taking over. They are on TikTok. They are reshaping the market landscape. They are very tech savvy, as I was mentioning, but they are also value driven and look for authenticity. There are 230 million Gen Z today in China and 374 million in South Asia. So TikTok made me buy it. You may be aware of the Stanley Tumbler. 1 billion views on TikTok, 11 minutes sold out in July of 2023. In the US, we know that by 2027, 50% of all e-commerce sales will be done on mobile. And actually, what business leaders observe is that Gen Z are the most tech-savvy, but also customers are sensitive to price, delivery, and returns management. As I was mentioning, in this report, we surveyed consumers, but we also interviewed a large number of executives, and we have a few case studies. What have we learned about platforms and seamless commerce? So seamless commerce, I mentioned it earlier, is a new way to include all the social channels, mobile, the store, everything where we can buy. Shein, as you may all know, is expected to be a $59 billion by 2025. They operate 6,000 factories in China. They have about 30 million followers on socials. As an example, you may know already H&M. H&M, they produce 25,000 items a year. By comparison with Shein, we are talking about 1.3 million new items a year. So this is massive, and they are, of course, 40 to 60% cheaper than their competition. So what are the general shopping preferences of consumers in Asia-Pacific? We've asked them where they prefer to shop and whether they prefer to visit a store, so a physical experience, whether they prefer to shop online, but actually, nearly the majority of them, 45%, prefer the seamless commerce experience. They start online, they finish offline, or vice versa. They do the research on TikTok, and then they go to the store. Going a little bit deeper into details, around countries, there is a diverse numbers across the region. In Japan, 44% of them prefer to shop into a store, versus in Indonesia, nearly 60% of them prefer to shop online. So, what are they looking for when they shop online and on the shopping platform? First, it's always about pricing, having a competitive pricing, but it's also about providing a wide variety of products. And, of course, ensuring fast and reliable delivery. This is a number 3 feature that they privilege when they want to shop online. As you were mentioning earlier, it's buying now and wanting to be delivered now, immediately. So moving on to the digital payments, how do they pay? And actually, more than 52% of them prefer to have an e-wallet. So these are results across the region. And secondly, the mobile banking app. But cash on delivery remains one of the favorite payment methods. And if we go into details, around countries, we're going to see that India is the one that is privileging cash on delivery versus Hong Kong with an e-wallet, or Singapore with Pay Now, or other payment methods. And what do they consider when they want to shop online? First and foremost, security and fraud. It's very important to them, but it's also about convenience of use. Moving on to the retailers and how they are embracing AI and how AI is shaping the world today. 80% of companies will be using AI APIs by 2026. Today, it's only 5%. We see a massive change, and we know that technology and innovation is the new norm. Some use cases for retailers, from front to back-end operations. You've all seen a chatbot. You've all experienced this kind of AI-driven chatbot, but they can also use AI to analyze customer data, create content, personalize recommendations. And on the back end, AI can help with demand forecasting, with automating supply chain, and of course, inventory management. As an example, the AI-driven virtual assistant from Sephora. Using machine learning, they created this virtual assistant that helped them generate a 7x ROI. Another example, Amazon, using AI to detect damaged goods before humans. They are 3 times more effective than humans to detect these goods. So what is it going to do? It's going to save money, save costs, and generate more revenue. Additionally, devices, IoT devices and IoT AI-driven devices, we're going to be connected like never before in the office, in the shops, in the warehouses. They are already on your body if you have an Apple Watch, and they are going to be 30.9 billion IoT devices by 2025. So the amount of data that we are going to be able to see and analyze. Ooh, something is happening. I don't know what happened. Yeah, exactly. Can you put it in presentation mode? And I will go back to. Sorry for that. Okay. Sorry. So consumers are excited about AI, but are also very much concerned. We all are very much concerned. And the first concern is around privacy. The second one is around the lack of accuracy. That's why I asked earlier ChatGPT to define seamless commerce, and I agree with the definition, so I took it. But give it a try from time to time. They say wrong things. Number 3 concern is bias and discrimination, of course. Number 4, the lack of human interaction. And actually, I personally think it's going to reduce in the upcoming months to a year, because the more and more people are going to use AI, the better they're going to be more comfortable in the lack of interaction and human interaction. And finally, the misuse of personal information. It is still, up to this day, very much a concern for consumers. Okay. So at KPMG, we've defined 12 principles for a successful AI implementation. So what we say is that it's better to start small, to clarify the economics, to set a vision, but maintaining the human connection and creating an AI-friendly culture. And this can help in the back end, also in an AI-driven supply chain optimization, from data collection all the way to shipping and logistics. As I was saying, GenAI is a powerful tool that is helping reshape the customer experience for a better, faster, and smarter customer experience. But not only, it can help also drive supply chain optimization. Our leaders the leaders that we've interviewed shared some perspectives, and already they were deploying AI across a wide range of use cases. You're going to see more details in the report. I'm going to share the QR code later on. Moving on to the drive towards sustainability. It was mentioned earlier today, sustainability is no longer a buzzword. It is the baseline, and brands should stitch diversity, inclusivity, and sustainability into their core. It's actually a driver for consumers in Asia Pacific when they shop. The first one being waste reduction, the second one being sustainable sourcing of raw materials. And if we go a little bit more into details, we can see that most of the generations in most of the countries are focusing, when we think of sustainability, into waste reduction and recycling. But across Hong Kong and China, it is more sustainable sourcing of raw material. And in Japan, it's about using eco-friendly packaging. Now, the Retail Greens Innovative. We've asked consumers if they were willing to pay more for sustainability, meaning a sustainable product, good or services. And 34% of them said no, they are not willing. However, it means that 65% of them are willing to pay more for sustainability. And actually, 53% are actively seeking and supporting sustainable retailers. So if we go and look a little bit further into details, we can see that the younger the generation, the more willing they are to pay for sustainability. Some countries less than others, some generations more than others. But it's quite interesting to see that the majority are actually willing to pay more. So sustainability is really a key factor today. And the next wave of sustainability will see far greater demands for supply chain transparency. So you need to ask yourself and the companies you work with if they are trustful and purposeful, if they are committed to a net zero and decarbonization plan, and see if you are ready for greater regulation. Regulations are coming, and very soon. And we spoke to Anne-Laure Decour, the Global Chief Sourcing Officer of Puma. She's based in Hong Kong. And she told us that the main concern for retailers is no longer how you sell, it is how you produce. ESG is now a must-have. It is no longer a nice-to-have. And we believe that we all need to focus on responsible sourcing, a circular economy, a due diligence on suppliers, and also, of course, technology enabling ESG reporting. Talking about ESG reporting, it is coming. EU sustainability regulations are coming in 2025, and it's going to require to establish policies and governance to build transparency across the supply chain, and of course to monitor this regulatory landscape that is evolving constantly. Moving on to the final part of my presentation, having seen what consumers are saying, what leaders are saying, what happened, I want to look into the future and share with you some executive insights into the future. Okay. These are the key themes that we believe are going to shape retail in the next 1 to 2 years. AI and data. AI, we've spoken about it. We know there is no doubt. But there is no AI without data. So it's all about collecting the data, storing the data, cleaning the data, securing the data to make sure that your AI is efficient and productive. Beyond compliance, ESG is going to be a source of competitive advantage. And of course, the workforce. Your workforce needs to be ready to be, and will require new skills and will require to adapt. And this is going to help shape the future of supply chains in the 3 to 5 years. We're going to see more digital trade. We're going to see larger use of technology and, of course, a greater need in transparency. We, as I was mentioning, we've spoken with a lot of C-level executives and did in-depth case studies around the region, one of them being Aftership. It is a SaaS tech logistic company. They started in 2011 in Hong Kong, and they just moved their HQ to Singapore in 2024. And they are now based all over the world and taking care of the last mile delivery and other returns management. But it's purely based on technology and software. It is a SaaS company. And I would really recommend you to have a look to the case study. So, last and final slide. What should the C-suite be thinking about and what you should thinking about? Business as usual is no longer an option. We need to embrace AI and technology, like AI, but other ones, and have a new future-ready workforce. So, where do we start? Thank you very much for your attention. This is a QR code. If you'd like to download the report, there will be way more data than what I just shared. And I'm Julie. I'm based in Singapore. I was delighted to travel here, but you have a team from KPMG Sri Lanka that is here. And if you need any assistance, we'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, for a very informative presentation and session. I think you put me in a tough spot. I don't have any questions for you now. You answered all my questions. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. So we are going to have a quick round of questions and answers from the panelists, trying to get the best information out of them to enable all of you in the audience to either learn something or take some of that information and be able to implement it in your businesses or work with different stakeholders to improve the situation in Sri Lanka. Sean, you're, like I said when I first started, quite the famous individual in Sri Lanka. Everybody in logistics knows you. You've been a great campaigner for the sector over the years. Before, I know you're here as part of the Global Shippers Forum as the chairman, but I'd like to tap into a little bit back in time during your period in the private sector with MAS in particular. I know that you drove the team that first started or enabled e-commerce in Sri Lanka right, with specifically projects like the bulk custec. Since that, I think 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, we haven't really seen new innovation or new things come into that space. In your perspective, what is it that's holding us back from really tapping into this market and really exploding on the e-commerce front, which is a need in the country and also for the region?
Check one. Thank you. Tough question. Very simply, Sri Lanka is not ready for this. This is because of the poverty levels and the people who serve us. There's a lot of corruption in the game. Corruption is the root cause to all of this. If you order something, it doesn't come on time or it's lost. You know, we still cannot find the data, how many packages and the values of it coming into Sri Lanka. There's a huge grey market that directly puts merchandise into the hands of the people who want it rather than coming to the proper channels. So compliant courier companies or last mile deliveries cannot compete with that space, in that space, because they can offer cheaper and no holds barred. For example, one guy ordered a Fitbit to the right channels. It was held back by the Border Protection Agency saying that you need TRC approval, saying that it's a communicating device. So it's up to that level. And the regulatory framework is not in place for imports, even though we have set it up for exports. The setting up for exports is because we took the initiative to look at avenues to export our product. That's why the bulk custec came. I do not know if anyone in the room does not know about this. Up to $3,000, if you have a registered company, a tax identification number without a custec, you can sell your merchandise directly to a consumer anywhere in the world. However, end of the month, the courier company has to share a bulk custec with the customs. We really do not know because we don't have data. Without data, we cannot take futuristic decisions. And it is not the time or the governments have not focused on this because, and the authorities in the border protection agencies are making bucket loads of money through the ill-gotten way that they don't care to even implement a system so that we could track and trace and bring some efficiencies into this space. So that's where we are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Suren, if I was to ask you a similar question on a regional aspect, though, right? With your experience with handling global logistics for Victoria's Secrets, with your experience as the former chairman of the Sri Lanka Shippers Council, what do you think is the major logistical challenge faced by shippers when it comes to cross-border e-commerce in South Asia, specifically the India sub, let's take it because that's the closest neighbors, and compare that to Sri Lanka? And what are your thoughts there? What are the difference in the challenges? Are we facing the same challenges? Or like Sean said, is corruption the main challenge we are facing?
Yeah, thanks, Sanjay, and thanks, CIMC, for having me again. It's quite interesting, right, when we discuss about e-commerce and the exponential growth, both Samir and Julie spoke about. And in the context of South Asia, also getting there. So in terms of challenges, I think I can identify 4 quadrants, 4 main challenges that we would be at. Sorry for that. So number 1, as Sean said, it's about customs and regulatory compliance. So I'm not going to steal his thunder, but just want to let everyone know about the inconsistencies within South Asia when it comes to understanding products by customs. You know, it's white here and it's black somewhere else. It's not consistent. And in terms of the de minimis, it's rarely defined when it comes to South Asia and particularly Sri Lanka. Right, so, but when you look at the other countries that are with a better growth engines like US and Europe, it's quite well understood, and people use it very commonly. The, I think the other complexities in document creation, where major courier companies have actually come up with solutions in terms of helping the senders and the receivers of what actual documents that you need by country, is still a challenge in South Asia, right? So moving on to from the customs and regulatory compliance into a more inconsistent infrastructure and last mile delivery, which Sim spoke about as well, in terms of understanding the postal codes, particularly the system that is driving, I would say, courier companies and e-commerce companies to deliver last mile efficiently, is not that robust in this part of the world, right? And the undeveloped ports, airports, debarring Sri Lanka and India are quite good in that. But the other countries where particularly the countries are landlocked, it's quite difficult to have this infrastructure and last mile capabilities for this e-commerce. Then currency fluctuations, payment issues, and tariffs and taxes. So when it comes to the area that we're talking about, South Asia, it's a small area compared to the other big sectors in the world, but the multiple currencies that we have and the exchange controls owing to several different reasons are not helping us to exponentially grow the e-commerce market, because it's so much of changes that the currency has to go through, including the restrictions in payment gateways like use of blockchain and digital currency is an issue. Then another part I would think is more valuable in terms when it comes to e-commerce is the return process, the reverse logistics, and the environment regulations, which unfortunately in this part of the world is not quite well defined. Back to customs, they don't recognize returns as non-dutable items, right? So, and I'm happy that at least most of the Sri Lankan companies are thinking about biodegradable packaging, then environmental friendly packaging, as it was said by some of the speakers earlier, because that's the way forward, and we are yet to get there. So I think broadly, South Asia challenges, these are the challenges I see that we need to get through.
Thank you, Suren. Chintaka, if I was to come to you for a quick second, just to touch on the other side of e-commerce, right? The digital aspect of it. We see live streaming on TikTok and other channels picking up in a big way in most parts of the developed world. How do you think live streaming, shopping impacts consumer behavior and its expectations in Sri Lanka versus what you've seen, for example, in Australia or New Zealand or in the more Pacific regions?
Yeah, I think if you look at the New Zealand, Australia market, it's quite, if you go back 10 years, the e-com retail is about 3% of the total retail spend in Australia and New Zealand markets. But in 2022, it's about 18% of the sales online retail, about 45 billion worth of retail in e-commerce. And unlike Europe and US markets, we don't see much of the online streaming, and virtual reality is actually playing a big role in those markets, because the brick and mortar shops still well established in the main centers around Australia and New Zealand, and they maintain their fulfillment centers around Sydney, Melbourne, and Auckland. And this recent survey done by Australia Post shows that 60% of the people who bought the products in the shop, they first browsed on the e-com site before they came into the shop to buy them. Only 20% actually browsed the products on the shop and then bought online. So there's a significant growth shift that needed to happen, the channel shift needed to happen. And particularly on the fashion retail and cosmetics space, the virtual reality and online streaming is actually increasingly take part. But you've seen the countries like Australia, for example, they're just passing the legislation to ban TikTok for anybody below 17 years or to 18 years. 16 years, yeah, sorry. So you can see that there's a lot of resistance for social media, with particularly Australian government has a lot of challenges with Facebook and all the social media with regard to sort of the penetration into the market. Nothing to do with retail, but that's sort of I have a back in the minds on the people, and therefore I think the most probably that we will be more for following US and Europe rather than the leading that part of the market. Yeah.
If you were to talk about how that would connect with the implications to logistics, what do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years, for example?
Yeah, that's a very interesting concept. In Australia and New Zealand, we now, for the last 3 years, we have a Amazon effect. Means the pure retail players as well as the brick and mortar players like H&M and Iconic, they all have an e-com channel as well. And they all struggling with the Amazon entering the market with the same day and within 3-hour delivery windows on the main centers. And particularly the traditional courier market is actually struggling to change their infrastructure to actually adjust to quickly adopt those quick delivery methods. So they're progressively adding all those product categories that dominated by the brands through the Amazon channel, and then they are actually using the delivery as a differentiator to actually capture the market. And that is quite scary for a lot of retailers actually with regard to the market share shift. What it does is actually increase the experience for the shoppers. It's actually increase the overall retail market because people buy more things that they never thought that they wanted to buy because they have access to all the information they needed and it's readily available and they can buy now and get delivered now. So that's quite a big shift that's happening currently, and I think that trend is going to change the Australia and New Zealand market in the next 3 years quite significantly.
Thanks, Chintaka. Samar, I think Chintaka mentioned something quite interesting there, especially in the Australian market, right? Where he's talked about how the traditional courier businesses are struggling to adapt. Now, when it comes to you, Samar, you've led Aromex's transformation in Africa and commercial growth. And now you are in Southeast Asia, India subcontinent, South Asia. What's the key difference you see from the African market, for example, and to come to countries like Sri Lanka? Where do you see us placed to grow, basically, when it comes to the e-commerce space? What are your thoughts? What are the key differences? What do you see the challenges? Are they the same challenges or are they different?
Yeah, I think if you ask me, definitely the market in Africa is growing, definitely. And we have one of the biggest players, which was highlighted, Jumia. It's a huge player in the African market, and they call it the Amazon of Africa. So, and it's growing at an exponential growth, diversifying into different products across the region. And while in this part of the world, I'm not saying that there's a lot of Chinese as well, players in that realm, Shein, Temu, which are also growing as well, in Australia as well, by the way. It's massive. Amazon is also trying to catch up, Shein. So, but what surprises me is, with all the manufacturing that's happening in this part of the world, we don't see that grow. And I think maybe it goes back to what John highlighted in terms of either corruption or other reasons. But I would expect, because the infrastructure here is definitely much more advanced than in Africa, I would see it propel at a faster pace in Sri Lanka, which is quite surprising to see not happening. So I hope to see it to develop at a faster pace here. Thank you.
Let's do it together, I say. Back to you, Julia, for a second, if you don't mind. What role do you think e-commerce plays in driving economic growth and development in Sri Lanka? And what steps should we take to ensure inclusivity, accessibility to all citizens, and also take into consideration, I mean, what Sean said as well, right, regarding how the system works, the bureaucracy, the red tape, from a perspective of someone from KPMG who is big in Sri Lanka when it comes to analytics and consultation. What are your thoughts there?
Very good question. I took a few notes and I was looking at the Sri Lanka marketplace in specifically. And when you link it to online commerce, e-commerce, seamless commerce, all these platforms, you can see that clearly it can help increase employment opportunities first, obviously, for the entire people of Sri Lanka across the whole supply chain. It can help boosting exports, obviously enhancing the financial inclusion and stimulating domestic consumption. I'm hoping also it's going to be encouraging this digital transformation. And when we touch upon inclusivities, how do we make sure that all generations have access to a smartphone, to a computer, and can utilize this in the best way possible? So it's touching on inclusivity. And of course, we need to think about expanding mobile usage, promoting digital literacy, so moving a little bit upon education and awareness. So all of this, I believe, will help Sri Lanka with e-commerce.
Thank you, Julia. I have a turnaround question to Sean and Suren. I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot a little bit, right? We all know about the corrupt system and the different points of corruption. We've, for the longest time, been expecting policymakers and government stakeholders to change this, right? You know me, Sean, at the council also I've advocated many a time that the people in this room, the shippers, get together and set the standards, just like your buyers in Europe, in the US, set standards for your manufacturing. I haven't seen traction happen on that end at all. So I would really like to understand what's holding shippers back from placing that same burden of compliance that they are placed on from their buyers back onto their suppliers, service providers such as ourselves, it may be the port, it may whoever your supplier is. What do you think the reason is for this, to hold back on this particular initiative, which is quite easily done by the Chamber of Commerce can implement this, Shippers Council can implement this, and it can also be tied into tax benefits at the end of the day with the government or the policy where you say, look, I'm working with compliant organizations, they have these policies in place and practices in place. What's holding everyone back?
Beautiful question. Thank you for really putting me on the spot. I strongly believe that the private sector is equally corrupt with the public sector. I have seen it day in, day out. You and I are willing to pay 100 rupees or 1,000 rupees to get out of a traffic offense, right? And then you blame the government for all the other misconducts that happen. The day you, as an individual, take the decision not to pay bribes, that's the day you will find the real Sri Lanka. Until then, I will ask you to go and listen to this song today. Dream on. This country will never change. The change is with you and me. What happens with most of the companies? in your face, they are clean and neat, but there's somebody else doing their dirty work. They outsource the dirty work to somebody else, so they get an invoice of service charges, but embedded in that service charge is the bribery and corruption paid to somebody else. Am I wrong or am I right? All of you are private sector people here, right? So this is the reality. We are looking up and spitting at on our own faces. Until you change, that is including me, this country will never change. You can come and put God on the parliament seat, it won't change, because we'll try to bribe God also. That's a fact. So my message would always be, let's do the right thing to ourselves and to the country. Then we will see 10 years from now, maybe I'll be in my grave, I'll raise the flag and say, well done, Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Taking a different approach, of course, I agree with Sean with what he said, but Sanjay, to be honest, the global supply chains and networks are actually actively putting effort into their second, third tier suppliers. So it's not only the manufacturers in Sri Lanka, but also they're going behind compliance to their raw material producers, networks of logistic providers, those who interact with customs in Sri Lanka as well as in other parts of the world. So to answer your question, it's happening, and it's getting to a great extent. And to Sean's point, everyone here will probably, if you are depending on an export economy to this country, Sri Lanka, will automatically will have to change, because the buyers are now forcing those, not only to the manufacturers, but the second, third tier suppliers.
Thank you, Suren. So anyone in the room, you want a solution to help the country stop corruption? I just gave you one. Samar, just over to you. What do you think, as Aramex, what can we do in Sri Lanka, and what is our commitment to Sri Lanka and the region as a whole?
Look, other than being close to my heart as a country, and I love the Sri Lankan people, we have a commitment towards Sri Lanka, and I have high hopes that Sri Lanka will transform into a hub soon, with removing a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. And we've already started our commitment towards Sri Lanka. And this is with you, Sanjay, with your support and the team's support here. We're moving into a new warehouse of operations near the airport. We would love, and there are also corporate offices. So we are doubling down our investment in Sri Lanka, be it in terms of infrastructure, bringing on new systems for customers, better customer service experience. And also we are exploring to Sri Lanka as a hub. I am sure many players here in the room have faced a lot of problems in the last 6 months for India in terms of space, or Bangladesh, and everybody was looking around for space, especially for Bangladesh, when many airlines downgraded their space out of Bangladesh and they had to move cargo through Delhi or other airports, which was a disaster, and that really put a lot of strain and pressure on airlines, and space and prices went up the roof. So I'm counting on less red tape, less bureaucracy for having shipments to come in and out, and the sky is the limit. You have the space, you have the connectivity with the airline, and the location. We've tried to basically, in the past, trying to move shipments out of Sri Lanka for the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and I hope things will change, hopefully, with the new government and new president will bring on change, and that's what we're betting on. But we've already started. Thank you.
Thank you, Samar. Since our time is winding up, we have a few more minutes. If anyone from the audience has any quick questions for any of the panelists, please put your hands up. I'm sure the panelists will be more than happy to give you some feedback. Yeah.
I'm Shian from NIBM. I would like to question from the Aramex. You mentioned that you all are using drone technology for your delivery process. So, for what kind of stuff do you all do to mitigate the theft of drones?
Thank you. Look, as I mentioned during the presentation, drones are now used in many countries, by the way. And they're used mainly for pharma or urgent shipments across. But it's a cycle of approvals and, again, civil aviation, because the risks are there. Has it been able to scale up? But I'll give you one experience in the video that I shared earlier. That was a test done in Oman. And what was interesting to see during that test is it is actually practical to start using for certain deliveries to replace the man and van. When I say that, the cost was 20% cheaper and much more faster. But again, imagine hundreds and thousands of drones moving around. It has to be regulated. It has to be controlled. There's a lot of things that needs to be developed. And with the development of technology and with AI, just to give you a good example, do you know how much AI IQ is growing every year? Every 6 months, the IQ doubles. So you're going to see better solutions and better technology in the near future. And I'm quite optimistic that with the development of drones and with better regulations, which is already happening, and as I gave, again, the example of Zipline, I mentioned in East Africa, has been using drones, I would say, 10 years, more than 10 years ago, mainly for pharma vaccines across different regions in Africa. And I can name Uganda, I can name Tanzania, Kenya, and so forth, in Ghana as well. So it's definitely something that will happen. It's not happening at a scale, but this is still, it's in infancy stages, I would say, and it's getting more and more viable.
Your question was how they will prevent theft of drones, no? In those countries, if you steal, you get your hands cut. But in Sri Lanka, if you steal something, 1,800 rupee fine, and then release. So until we have stringent laws and chop the heads off, then only we will stop stealing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Anyone else? Maybe one question? Lady over there.
I'm Sitamini Jayasekara from University of Moratuvar. So recently we visited economic centers of Sri Lanka. So what we identified is that farmers deliver goods to economic centers and the return trip is empty. So this is an opportunity in terms of last mile delivery because if they could find clients along the way, they could use this opportunity. And it's the same when it comes to courier services as well. The return trip is empty. So what is the possibility of having a platform like that? And what is your, in your point of view, what do you think about these missing opportunities of last mile delivery in Sri Lankan perspective?
Can I take this? Yeah.
Look, I think, again, with the model I've mentioned, definitely there's a huge opportunity there. Anything you can, on the backfill, you can manage to get is purely profit. So definitely there's a huge opportunity there. There's a lot of challenges in Sri Lanka in terms of the infrastructure, the traffic. Unfortunately, it's really kicking in terms of the cost. And we're trying to apply more and more new models. And as I mentioned, one of them, which is the mini centers or the dark warehouse concept, which is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's really helping to solve some of these problems. So imagine, like Sanjay mentioned earlier, shipment going all the way to Jaffna. How far is it? 800 kilometers? Imagine, there was the hub and spoke solution earlier where shipments would go from a centralized warehouse all the way to Jaffna, which would take, I don't know how many days, and eventually get delivered. Today, with this new model, there would be mini centers across the country and the shipments, as I mentioned earlier, would get delivered on a fraction of that distance and time, and achieving definitely sustainability. So, but definitely this requires a very intricate and high level of technological solution. And that's why you heard me earlier again in terms of the high level of investments. Because the shipment has to, the minute it's ordered, it has to go to the processing center, and then it goes to the closest area within that diameter of delivery, and connected to the right courier that goes out, gets it fulfilled, and then eventually delivered. But there's a huge opportunity as well on the backfill. But this definitely solves that problem, or minimizes that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good question. From Aramex, I'd like to have, I think Kaushan is here, sit down and have a chat with her on the economic centers. She's got a good project there for you. Thank you, everyone. It was a great pleasure to have been having this discussion with the panelists. It was an honor as well in most cases. Thank you, and have a great evening. Amar, there are some gifts from Aramex for the panelists, so if you don't mind, hold on. No.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay, and our renowned panelists for broadening our perspective of the rapid changing landscape of e-commerce and pointing out the crucial role of last mile delivery and technology. While these sessions commence, ladies and gentlemen, please note tea and coffee is available outside the hall if you'd like to have. You can bring your coffee or tea inside the hall, as we will be continuing the sessions and discussions.